Hello, I'm Nancy Schertzing, Director of Restorative Approaches in Education for CDRUM. On July 14, I had the privilege of hosting our second lunchtime webinar titled To Protect and Defend, Preparing Maryland School Resource Officers and School Safety Employees to Work in Schools. The webinar featured two of my colleagues from the Maryland Center for School Safety, talking about the extensive training that Maryland law enforcement and school safety employees go through before working with our students. Restorative approaches are a part of that, and I thought you might like to know more about it.
So thank you all so much for coming. Today we are going to talk about the reason that, or we're going to get into the training and the information of about our school resource officers and our school safety employees who are stationed or who work in our Maryland schools. Just a quick history background. In 2018, the massacre in Parkland, Florida, and then also a similar shooting in St. Mary's County here in Maryland prompted the Maryland legislature to adopt the Safe to Learn Act, which placed law enforcement personnel in schools to help protect our children. And beyond the protection, the law does require that school resource officers, and we'll refer to them as SROs, and school security employees, SSEs, that they receive training to be able to work with the student population more effectively and just the whole education community, the learning communities in our schools. So the responsibility for doing that training for SROs and SSEs was given to the Maryland Center for School Safety, which is a part of the Maryland State Department of Education. And what we want to explain or talk about a little bit today is that SROs and SSEs get 54 hours of training before they go into our schools. And at least recently, the MCSS has engaged over 250 people in this training academy, which is what we're going to talk about. Our guests will share with you a little bit more information about what happens in or what's included in the training academy. One of the things that I want to just share with you very quickly, a picture of what the effect of this training is on the people who go through it. And what we have here is a very, very short clip from the Maryland Center for School Safety video that shows a gentleman who is a sheriff's deputy, who is an SRO in a school system.
It's ours. I'm deputy first class with Frederick County Sheriff's Office. I work at Tuscarora High School. It's been both. We've done one-to-ones. We've also done mediations with students with the administration. And then just yesterday, we did a mediation with parents. I think it puts us more in the light like of a social worker instead of law enforcement. That most people see me come in and it's not like, oh, the police are here. It's something, it's like, Deputy Sowers is coming. Maybe we can talk to him and see if we can get something done.
We based our training from the beginning off of the use of subject matter experts. We know I was a police officer. There's only so much that I'm able to teach from experience. We wanted our program to be legitimate to our trainees. So since its inception, we've utilized subject matter experts from local school systems and hospitals throughout the state of Maryland.
I'll finish that for you. So that gives you just a little bit of an image of the kind of the attitude that that particular officer, that sheriff's deputy, has when he's working in his schools. To give you a more in-depth full picture, we have invited Jeff Smith, our school safety program coordinator for MCSS, and Jim Hott, who is the school safety emergency preparedness specialist. He's the lead trainer for the academy. Because each of these gentlemen comes from a law enforcement background, The question that I had for them initially is to share with us a little bit about where they come from and what was their first impression of restorative practices before they started working in schools. And so, Jim, I'm wondering if you could start us off with sharing the answer to this question. What did you think about restorative practices before you worked in schools?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Jim Hott. I am the program coordinator here at the Maryland Center for School Safety. I was a police officer for 25 years. And Jeff and I were both police officers. I'm from the western side of the state. He's from the eastern side. So in the middle of my career, I became a school resource officer, which was the best choice that I have ever made. To be honest, the way that I looked at things, restorative approaches, as well as many police officers do, they look at it first and to a point where we don't really understand it. It's the thing of, we're here as police officers, we want to make sure people follow the rules and do the right things. And that's just a touchy-feely subject, the restorative approaches. That's kind of how a lot of police officers look at it until they're educated on it. And we see it firsthand. Jeff and I see it firsthand in our course. When Nancy's finished her class, we see a little different attitude from the beginning to the end. They realize it's not just about letting kids get away with things. It's about making them understand how they made the other person feel, which basically empathy. And our kids don't get empathy taught very much in schools, in our neighborhoods, or even in our homes much anymore. So this is a very important core program for our curriculum, is to have our SROs and SSEs teach the kids that they deal with to have empathy. And I think that's what encompasses restorative approaches, just in my opinion. I just think that the fact that it can teach kids how to not look at themselves all the time and not be so narcissistic, but to realize how their actions affect others and empathize with them. And it's going to help them as they move on in life.
Thank you, Jim. I want to just ask a quick follow-up on that. Do you think also that being in the training and when they're actually able to engage, that our SROs and SSEs have a different perspective on accountability, how restorative approaches maybe holds a student accountable in a different way?
Yeah, I believe they do. I think at the beginning, it's that thought of, we're just trying to let kids get away with things. They're not going to be held accountable. It's just a talk session. There are consequences. Anytime we make mistakes, there's consequences. We've all made mistakes. We've all had consequences. And restorative practices, in my view, is just how to deal with those consequences in a positive manner to try to change the behavior of the student in the future. And I see that. And I will say, before I go any further, this is a small portion, 4 hours for our class. We tell them from the beginning, we tell our SROs and SSEs, this is not for you to lead a restorative approaches session. It's for you to understand what it is and to, if asked, take part in that situation, because they do play an important role in the lives of the children in their schools. Our whole curriculum is based upon mentorship and being a mentor for those students. So for them to be able to be a part of the restorative practices session is vital to that mentorship with the students. So yeah, I've seen kind of like the barriers come down. As police officers, many times they put a barrier up when it's something that is new. I don't like change. I've never have. I don't like change. Many of us are the same way. And when we're faced with new things, we put that barrier up. But once we are open to it and understand it, I've seen that barrier come down time and time again in our courses over the 2,000 people that we've trained since 2019.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, Jeff, you also served as a police officer. Tell us about how your perspective, you have an interesting story and about how your perspective, where you came from and how your perspective changed. Will you share that with us?
Sure. I served in law enforcement for 30 years before I made my way to the Maryland Center for School Safety. And for 20 of those 30 years, I worked in covert jobs, which are, for lack of a better term, not front-facing parts of law enforcement. I worked in, narcotics and special enforcement for 20 of my 30 years. And I only spent 10 years, a third of my career, wearing a uniform. And front forward facing, interacting with the public. And when I left law enforcement, before I was here at the Maryland Center for School Safety, I was a school security director for Talbot County Public Schools. And as such, I was required by law to attend this training. And when I went through this class as a student, when it came to the restorative approaches portion, I think it goes without saying that police are taught to be tough. And after 30 years of dealing with the things that police officers deal with, sometimes you get a little bit calloused and you can lose perspective that there is actually a world outside of your world. And coming into this class, I was a little bit dismissive of restorative approaches because I didn't know what they were. You know, the title doesn't actually do the method, the methodology, and the practice justice. So when I sat through this class, let me back up a little bit. Prior in law enforcement, I was a crisis negotiator, which the old school term for that was hostage negotiator. So we practiced almost everything that Nancy teaches in her class as crisis negotiators. When we were dealing with someone in a crisis, we practiced almost all of these things that she talks about. And Jim talked about discipline in schools, and Jim always says discipline shouldn't be focused on punishment, but corrective action and modifying behavior. And I, after sitting through this class, had a new perspective on it. You know, with age comes perspective, and with perspective comes wisdom. And you know, I feel like I'm picking up a lot of wisdom along the way. And when we don't step outside of our comfort zones, we don't grow. No growth ever comes from a place of comfort. So I constantly, just like Jim said, I see police officers coming in, and police officers tend to be stoic when they first show up to a training class. It's hard to get them talking. It's hard to get them involved. But time and time again, I hear positive things about this class and the practice. And, you know, as police officers, one thing you are trained to do is pick up tools along the way for your toolbox to help you deal with just about any situation you run into. And we are good at that. We are good at taking tools that we learn from somewhere else, pulling what we like, pulling what we think might work for us, and putting it in our toolbox. And I've heard just a ton of police officers that have been through this class say now they have new tools for their toolbox to help them deal with situations in schools. And our whole program is not about, you know, breaking up fights and locking doors. That's a little bit of it. Most of our program is prevention through relationships. And we always say in our class that if when the bad thing happens, the horse is out of the barn and the barn's on fire, our goal with this class is to prevent bad things from happening in our schools. And, you know, restorative practices and restorative justice approaches and applications are right up that alley. And it's perfect for what we teach and the mindset and the mentality that we try to send people to work in schools and school security with when they leave our class.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I thinking back to Jim's comment about the helping students develop empathy, but one of the things that I see just really profoundly with the people that we train, and it's not true for everybody, but for the vast majority, I feel like there's a great sense of empathy that the SROs and the SSEs, especially the SSEs, I have to say, that because they're coming from a school environment and not so much from a law enforcement environment. I have been really touched and impressed with the amount of empathy that they have for many of their students already when I get the chance to interact with them. So just I don't know if you have any insights on that or anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, it is. Jim and I are constantly impressed with the caliber of people. You know, we always say that if you're sitting in our class, you deserve to start out at $100,000 a year for the work that they do, because they are highly underpaid and underappreciated. But the people that sit in our class, if you go through the class, you'll find coaches, you'll find men that run young gentlemen's clubs, women that coach cheerleading and dance. You know, you just find so many things where it's that whole community, it takes a community to raise a kid approach. I mean, I remember my dad saying to me, "I'm not trying to raise you to be a good kid. I'm trying to raise you to be a good man." And that's what we're doing with our kids, in my opinion, is trying to raise good adults for our society and our communities.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so SRO and SSE Academy, you have a full half day to restorative approaches, and then you have also a variety of other subjects that you teach, both in person and online. Can you share with us a little bit about what is the scope of the training that these officials, I don't know if I call it these professionals, get in the academy?
Sure, yeah, I can answer that. Our SSEs, and we probably should have kind of explained who they are. There are usually people, they could be civilians who come off the street, it could be retired police. We have SSEs that are retired corrections officers. Our SSEs are the ones that have, and SROs too, but the people we teach have a passion for being there, the passion to help kids. It's not as it was in my day years ago that, you know, a lot of times it was, well, we need to throw that officer in there that's ready to retire, to get him to retire, put him in that position. It's a highly sought after position in the police department now, being an SRO, because of the impact that is made by these officers and these SSEs in our schools. And our curriculum is based on mentorship. As I said before, we talk about the 4 types of an SRO and a security person: is being a mentor, being an educator, a safety manager, and then the last part is law enforcement, and that is intentionally the last part. There are times when law enforcement has to be used in a school, unfortunately, but we emphasize that that should be the last resort. Mentorship should be the first resort, because if you build those relationships with the kids, then they're free to tell you things that are happening in the area before that law enforcement hat can be put on. So mentorship is big. De-escalation is a huge part of our training. And one of our favorite classes is normative adolescent behaviors. And when we teach our attendees in our class that there are things that kids do, fighting in a school is a normative adolescent behavior. It is a thing that things that kids do. Kids talk back. It's a normal adolescent behavior. Doesn't always have to be treated with punishment or law enforcement action. You know, their brains, we tell them all the time, are not fully developed until the age of 26, at least. So we are dealing with kids who are highly emotional, going through lots of body changes and physical changes and mental health changes. And we talk to them about mentoring them, because there are a lot of times there are no adults on the outside of the school that the kids can speak to. So we talk to them about mentorship, de-escalation, and telling our attendees that, you know, there are normal things that kids do. It doesn't mean they have to get in trouble every time. As I said before, you know, we all make mistakes, and our model is kind of like, when you make a mistake, mistakes lead to consequences. Consequences don't always have to be punishment or pain like they were in the past. You know, as kids grew up, you got paddled or whatever. Consequences, in my opinion, lead to understanding, and understanding then hopefully will then lead to the change in behavior that we're looking for. Too many times people think that discipline needs to be done with punishment. Discipline needs to be done with love, and with the idea and the end all to be changing the behavior of the student. A couple things, you know, the consequences is the main focus, because at that time, that's the time where the kids can choose one way or the other. And a lot of the consequences that they face, they'll either accept them or they won't. A lot of that has to deal with the influence that other people have on their lives. If we have a positive role model in the school that is being a good influence on that student, they'll realize that, hey, you know what I did does deserve consequences, because going through this process, I see now what I've done to the other person, and I see the pain or the heartache I've put on that other person. So to have them, first off, build that mentorship role, because we know restorative practices is a voluntary thing. You can't force the suspect, for lack of better terms, the person who committed the act, to take part in this. So having that mentorship role and being able to say, hey, this is a good thing, we need to sit down and discuss, because whether we like it or not, most kids don't have the communication skills now to learn to talk to someone. Instead of talking to someone about how to solve a problem, they go right to violence, because it's what we're being influenced by with social media and our TVs and our movies and things. So it's very important to get that communication aspect, building that relationship with those students by communication, and then getting them to the point where now they can accept the consequences by realizing, hey, you know what, I caused this on this other person. So I need to accept the consequences, and I know not to do it again because I see the reaction of that other person.
Thank you, Jim. Tell me just very briefly, what are some of the other trainings that your SROs and SSEs get as part of the academy?
We have a class on disability and diversity within a school setting. So we teach our police officers and our SSAs the different kind of education policies that are there regarding students with individual education plans, 504 plans, which means they have separate things they have to do for students. We educate people on autism, on interaction with autism and students with intellectual developmental disabilities. We also have constructive interactions with juveniles as a class that I teach that teaches officers how to build those relationships. We have topics on internet safety, drug abuse, and the signs and symptoms of current drug abuse. We have classes on de-escalation, which I'll let Jeff talk about, as well as Maryland school law, implicit bias. We have a class on self-care. And many of these classes are taught, as you saw in that video, by subject matter experts that we use to teach these classes.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. We unfortunately have gone through our 30 minutes pretty so quickly, as always happens with us. And I see that Jeff, I believe you responded to one of the questions in the chat. And we've got another question that is here, which I am going to see if we can maybe respond offline to this question. And maybe Jim, you could take it while I close us out here. The reason that I invited both of these gentlemen here is that I really wanted everybody to understand how restorative approaches are used not just like in the classroom, not just for school discipline, but we are really, really integrating them into our learning communities. And this is just one example of how that happens here in Maryland. So I thank you for joining us. And I believe that Jim is responding to a chat. If you want to stay on, feel free to do that right now. I do want to do a shameless plug, if you will, for our next lunchtime Restorative Approaches webinar. We're going to meet on September 25th, so after the school year begins, and we have some leaders from the Circle for Restorative Initiatives in Maryland. The CRI, Circle for Restorative Initiatives, is doing a conference on November 14th, and there's lots of learning opportunities for many people at that. There'll be different kind of opportunities there, not just about education, but about other issues as well. So thank you all for joining us. If you're interested in following up on anything, please feel free to email me at the address here, explore our website, and you can connect with us on LinkedIn using the QR code. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And Lisa, thank you for helping out with everything, and hope to see you again in September. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for having us, Nancy.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.